Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today, our group will present about the 1994 Mexican peso crisis. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Norma Sarah binti Ahmad Badruddin. Okay, next, we will look into the background of Mexico. Mexico is the third largest nation in Latin America after Brazil and Argentina. It is in southern North America, one of the most significant economies in Latin America. The Mexican economy has expanded quickly since the 1970s. The nation's GDP per capita, however, continues to be far lower than that of the United States, which make up nearly two-thirds of GDP and include commerce, transportation, banking, and government, are extremely important to the Mexican economy. About one-fifth of the GDP is generated by manufacturing. The Tequila crisis, commonly referred to as the Mexican financial crisis of 1994 to 1995, was brought on by the country's devaluation of the peso in December 1994. It caused the worst devaluation of the currency in a year, from roughly 5.3 pesos per dollar to over 10 pesos per dollar between December 1994 and November 1995. The worst recession is more than a decade and the worst financial crisis in Mexican history. With a GDP falling over 6% in 1995, the two primary waves of financial globalization in the 20th century. It brought up important questions concerning the current state of financial globalization, the international financial architecture, and the proper function of international bailouts. Let we continue to the next causes of the Mexican crisis, which is currency mismatch. The balance sheet of the Mexican government revealed a significant currency mismatch. This meant that although if the Mexican government received all its revenue in pesos, a significant percentage of its debt has been issued in a form that could be convertible into US dollars. As a result, the Mexican government had peso receipts but debts in US dollars. A government should ideally be able to convert pesos to dollars on the open market and pay off its debt. The Mexican government did continue to maintain a currency peg with the US. This meant to maintain the value of their debt consistent in comparison to US debt. The Mexican Central Bank would engage in foreign market operation. They thus required dollar reserve to carry out these activities and lacked the funds to repay their debts.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Amirah binti Saiful Azmi. Now, I will continue to explain the causes of Mexican peso crisis. The second cause is overvalued peso. The Mexican government has kept its currency pegged to the US dollar. Therefore, the peso's value will fluctuate along the US dollar. However, currency pegged can be very harmful if any country has excessive inflation. As for Mexico case, the Mexican government was issuing massive amount of credits which caused inflation to increase. Since the peso was pegged, its value remained stable, thus leading to extreme overvaluing. This condition can be observed by the increase in imports and decrease in export. The third cause is current account deficit. Due to the overvalued peso, the government of Mexico faced a major current account deficit. The deficit was funded mostly through portfolio investment in the Mexican stock market. This method appeared to be safe in the short term. However, portfolio investment has the ability to leave countries in a matter of minutes. So, the use of portfolio investment as a basis to fund something as important as current account deficit would be very risky. The Mexican government has to pay the price of this mistake as it experienced a major outflow of capital and a lack of option for financing its deficit.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Umi Illa binti Rosli. Now I will continue with causes of the Mexican crisis. Maturity mismatch. Along with currency mismatch, the Mexican government also had a major maturity mismatch on its debt. This meant that a large amount of debt was to come due almost immediately in 1994. This was dangerous given the fact that there were no reserves to pay off the debt. Hence, in 1994, the government owed $35 billion in interest and principal payments, whereas it only had $6 billion in reserve, bringing shiver up the spine of Mexican officials. Also, the Mexican government was so far up in debt that it could hardly finance any more deficit of borrowing more money. Next, political situation. The political situation in Mexico also began to scare investors. There were a lot of high-profile kidnappings during that time, which suggested to investors that law and order situation within the country had broken down. Also, there was the assassination of a presidential candidate, which sparked further fear amongst investors. And also, the Mexican president started seeking counsel of his foreign minister, eminent economists, and labor unions in a very public manner. The media started speculating about the gravity of the situation, and investors in the forex market started exiting the peso as fast as they could.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Farawahida binti Abdullah. Okay, let's continue with the next causes. Okay, the next causes is the US interest rate increase. Okay, the Federal Reserve Board raised interest rate in the United States to record the level to contain inflation, while the European Central Bank also raised at the same time. Okay, the interest rate hike a negative impact on the Mexico and other developing countries across the board, and it was impacted by a rapid in a commodity prices. Okay, this combination of external shocks resulted in a drop of the export receipt and increase in the cost of servicing foreign currency debts and exchange rates pressures. Okay, as a result, investors began selling dollar-denominated Mexican debt and buying US treasuries. Mexican debt had no buyers, and given the peso's rapid depreciation, Mexico was heading for trouble. Okay, next, let's take a look to the consequences of the Mexican crisis in 1994. Okay, the first one is the port abandonment. Okay, the decrease of the peso currency in Mexico led to the considerable economic, political, social turmoil in the country. Okay, the Mexican government was forced to abandon their peg with the United States dollar since it did not have the reserve to keep trading in the forex market. Okay, for the second one is the bailout. Okay, the United States government had to come to rescue the Mexican government. This is because the Mexico was a major importer of American goods. Okay, also Mexico shared a long border with the United States, and political turmoil that would ultimately find its way to America. Okay, therefore, the American government somehow managed at around 51 billion bailout for easing the situation in the Mexico. Okay, in return, the Mexico had to pledge their oil reserve as a collateral. Okay, also Mexico was bound by the investor to follow stringent the monetary and credit expansion policies till their debt was paid off.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Siti Sarakila binti Roslan. Okay, so what does the Bank of Mexico really do in order to overcome this tension? Okay, due to the devaluation that occurred in December 1994, it has directly dealt a severe blow to the credibility of the Bank of Mexico. Okay, peso depreciated further in the first quarter of 1995. This was due to the uncertainty about Mexico's ability to fully settle its large stock of short-term debt, as well as the ability of the authorities to deal with the problem. Therefore, to address this problem, the Mexican government has requested assistance in terms of loans from the International Monetary Fund, which is IMF, and United States. Okay, from March to April 1995, Mexico received an international support package of 52 billion US dollar. Okay, the Bank of Mexico has tightened monetary policy with a status interest rates remaining above 70% to end the peso free fall and has gradually restored financial calm. This aims to withstand the effects of peso depreciation, inflation by lowering the inflation rates rapidly to the moderate level. Next, the determination of exchange rates and interest rate is independent according to the market power. Furthermore, there is no kind of control or restriction on the movement of the capital. Okay, the secondary objectives of its monetary policy are to prevent excessive fluctuation in the value of peso, rebuild the international reserve stocks, and rebuild the structure of the badly damaged banking system. Finally, the Bank of Mexico played an important role in the design and implementation of the temporary capitalization program, which is PROCATI, introduced by the Mexican government in February 1995. This aims to help banks that face capitalization levels below the standard of 8%.
In conclusion, the Mexican tequila crisis in 1994 was driven by a combination of poorly executed reforms, a currency patch, current account deficit, an increase in the US interest rate, and others that have resulted in both currency and banking crisis. There are various lessons to be learned from this incident, and several measures has been taken by the Mexican government to improve its financial structure. In addition, other countries also can learn from this tragedy to avoid having the similar problem and improve their position in the global economic system of the 21st century.